everybody, I'm Jammer, and welcome back to the island paradise of Animal H here in Animal Crossing New Horizons. Today, I want to talk about one of the bigger new mechanics that were introduced in the fall update, being growing pumpkins. Pumpkins are of course used to craft the new spooky DIYs that you can not only unlock on Halloween, but also villagers while crafting in their home can sometimes occasionally have the spooky DIYs. So yes, it is possible to get said DIYs not on Halloween. So it's definitely important to get tons of these pumpkins because it costs a lot to craft each DIY. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a little bit of testing today, because as you can see, pumpkins grow in a variety of different quantities as well as colors. As you can obviously see here, as well as you've probably experienced in your own town, orange is the most common pumpkin type to be grown. Which of course makes sense because each crafting recipe, each spooky DIY costs orange pumpkins to craft. The other colored pumpkins are actually used for customizing said spooky DIYs. As you can see here, it costs orange pumpkins for each of these different DIY recipes in order to craft them in the first place. But using the example of the spooky archway, here's the default orange archway, right? And then here's the 4 different alternate colors you can use. There's yellow, green, and monochrome, or the white pumpkins. And as you can see in the upper right hand corner, as well as where it requires what items you need to customize, rather than using customization boxes for the spooky items, it actually costs pumpkins to change the color of each of the spooky recipes. Here, for example, it costs 6 of a specific color to change the archway to the different colors: 6 orange, 6 yellow, 6 green, and of course 6 white pumpkins. So now you can see why getting orange pumpkins is definitely the most important one, considering you have to craft those in the first place. But sometimes you're definitely going to want to get crops of the other colors so you can actually customize your DIYs. So that's what we're going to do today. A little bit of testing to see what may or may not affect the chances of getting multiple of a certain pumpkin type, as well as hopefully getting specific color plants. So here on my island, I got a little grid set up, and what we're going to use today to host our experiments. Each of the columns are going to be what we plant in the ground. So for example, this row will be entirely from one of the pumpkin starts. This row will entirely be planted orange pumpkins. This row will be planted yellow, green, and white. That way we can test to see if planting the different pumpkins rather than the starts gives a higher chance of getting a certain color to regrow. Here on the left side are the rows, and each row is going to signify how much we plan to water these plants. The top row, we're not going to water whatsoever. We're going to let them grow naturally. The second row is going to be all watered one single day. Then the third row is going to be watered 2 days in a row. And then finally, the golden water can signifies watering all 3 days for the pumpkin plant to mature. Of course, it's also worth mentioning real quick that once a pumpkin does fully mature, it only takes 2 more days for it to regrow to have a new crop. Basically starting over at day 2, because day 1 starts as an infant sapling, and then there's like the 3 following stages. And those 3 stages continue to repeat every time the pumpkins are regrown. Now with that all the way, let's grab all these pumpkins here and start planting them in our little farm here. Like I said, this row will be all the starts. These will probably be very random, considering that's just how you get pumpkins in the first place, but that's going to be a good control for our experiment. The next row here is going to be all orange pumpkins, and I think it's well to expect that we're probably going to get a lot of orange pumpkins from these plants anyways. I'll actually be pretty surprised if we get a different color, all things considered, but I'm curious, will the same rules apply for these other colored rows here on our right? I'm really interested to see if this actually affects anything by planting the colored versions of the pumpkins as like the start, for these new crops. Will we get just more yellow pumpkins? Will it just be randomized again, just like the pumpkin starts there on the far left? That's kind of the question I'm trying to solve today. I already have a pretty good understanding of how the watering mechanics work, which I will explain once we have this full crop grown. But the real experiment here is to see what colored crops all of these crops are going to yield after planting them all. All right, the crops are all planted. Now we're going to start the montage. I'm going to start watering these things, hopping forward a couple of days so we can test this experiment. And so we'll quickly go through all that, and I'll meet you on the other side when we have all of these crops grown. Okay, the montage is over. That was a little bit of a mess, but I edited out probably most of it. Let's go check out our crops and see what we yielded. And here is the results of our experiment. Okay, so this is really interesting. As maybe a surprise to you, or at least to me anyways, if you plant one of the colored pumpkins that you originally get, you will 100% guaranteed get that pumpkin sprout afterwards. So if you have the orange, replant orange ones, you'll get more orange pumpkins. Same goes for yellow, green, and white. So if you only have like, you know, a couple of green pumpkins and you really want to get more to like customize whatever, or you're looking for more white or yellow, you know, you can easily just the ones you have, plant those and start farming those ones specifically. As for the watering mechanics, this is as I knew, but let me quickly explain. The top row is the ones we did not water whatsoever. So that means whenever you never water your pumpkins, they will always sprout a single pumpkin. One single day of watering a pumpkin will result in 2 pumpkin sprouts. The reason the bottom 2 rows both have 3 pumpkins is because we watered these guys 2 days and these guys 3 days. And here's the thing is that normal pumpkin sprouts, once we pluck all these, they're going to start as a stage 2 sapling rather than stage 1. So that's why these pumpkins actually had an extra day of growth compared to regular pumpkins. So if we picked this row, for example, watered them for 2 days in a row, they'll be the same as this row, obviously, because these ones were also watered only 2 days in a row. So even watering that extra day you do have when it is an infant sapling versus like a regular small one won't give you any additional pumpkins. So the only requirement is for you to at least water them 2 days in a row, or I guess technically every single day possible. So after I pluck these, if I watered them, they'll have 1 more day of growth and then they'll be back again. But this has been a really interesting experiment. As we can see here with the saplings, it's of course always random, but a higher chance of being orange. Of course, we got this triple green down at the bottom. If you want to get a specific color of pumpkin, obviously just plant a bunch of starts. Once you get a ton of starts, and you'll be bound to get at least a couple of these, you know, different colored pumpkins, one of each of the colors, and start planting those to create, you know, pumpkin patches specifically for the yellow pumpkins, white pumpkins, green pumpkins, so then you can make sure you can get those colored variations. As a matter of fact, one thing to actually mention is when you actually plant the yellow pumpkin here, for example, dig it back up, you'll actually look in your inventory, it'll actually be labeled as a yellow pumpkin sprout. This one, of course, showing the orange color instead. We dig up this one, for example, it should show that yes, it is in fact a green pumpkin plant. Matter of fact, it even says ripe, meaning the fact that there's actually a pumpkin on the sprout itself. And of course, in line, of course, makes sense as well. The white one would do something similar, having a white pumpkin on the icon. So you can know for a fact right off the bat what you're planting and what pumpkins it will produce. So I hope this tutorial and little experiment helped you in a way when it comes to farming your pumpkins here in Animal Crossing. My best recommendation is, of course, obviously start off with a bunch of starters, get as many pumpkins as you possibly can, and water them every single day, at least 2 of the days of their growth. After you get a bunch of pumpkins, start planting a bunch of the different other color types, the green, white, and yellow, so then you can start planting specific white, green, and yellow plants that can later continue to yield the same colored crop over and over and over, so you can make sure you get enough so you can customize the spooky DIYs. Of course, you're still going to need plenty of orange pumpkins as well, especially because all the DIYs do require that item. But this is going to be really helpful for being able to design your town. Maybe if you want to intentionally make a white pumpkin farm area where it's literally just white pumpkins, you can do that. So I hope this small little guide tutorial helped you guys out. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big awesome like, and if you haven't already, definitely subscribe for tons more on Animal Crossing New Horizons. As a reminder, we do stream this game every weekend at 10 a.m. Eastern right here on YouTube Live. That's both Saturdays and Sundays. Be sure to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram to keep up with everything we do in regards to the channel, as well as join our community Discord. The link to that is in the description below. Thanks guys again so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!